Hi there, everyone. My name is Ryan Kerr, and I couldn't be more excited to welcome you to my first episode of my first season of my first official podcast, Nocturnal Transmission. Nocturnal Transmission began as an Instagram Live check-in show way back in March 2020, and over the course of 100 days in a row and 100 shows in a row, I had the opportunity to chat with, interview, listen to many interesting, fascinating, wonderful, thoughtful, resilient, brilliant people. And what better way than in a formal podcast could I highlight some of those voices, bring out some exciting perspectives, and, share some new information. So I couldn't be happier to start the very first season, the very first episode, with something really fun. Two music theater professionals, both named Jonathan, the Jazz Hands Jonathans, started their careers, and I shouldn't say started, but were mid-career in March of 2020 when COVID hit, and it affected both of them differently. Spoiler alert, they've both been completely displaced from what they were doing before, and we're going to hear from both Jonathans, one who is now in Toronto, Canada, where I am as well, and another one who is in Yellowstone National Park. And we're going to hear about what they're up to, how they got there, and where they're going. So here we go with the Jazz Hands Jonathans. Yee. Welcome, Jonathan. Hi. Welcome to the very first episode of Nocturnal Transmission.
Nocturnal Transmission.
I mean, it's not really the first because I did 100 in a row on Instagram, which was a lot. Very, very tiring. And then I had to take a little break, which I think I've taken more than 100 days break. And here we are again, but this time we're like, I'm taking like a little bit more intimate and interactive time with like a one-on-one situation, a little bit less sort of, there isn't the live pressure, although I do like the live pressure sometimes. And you're a theater performer, which we'll talk about in a second. So you probably also enjoy the live pressure and, the on-the-spot thinking and all of that stuff. But I'm really excited to talk to you because in addition to being handsome and also living in the same city as me right now, we both like musical theater, except you're actually doing it as a person, in your life. And
you have done it though, so.
Well, I've definitely, yeah.
On Halloween you did it.
On Halloween, I was a very convincing Annie. Did you like my whole Annie, my in denial Annie? I'll come out tomorrow.
Yes, I loved it.
I loved it also. I also... It was the first time I had gotten ready for Halloween without thinking of seeing anybody with this bizarre COVID situation. So tell me, you're in Toronto, but you're not from Toronto. In fact, you would normally be, where would you be? What city would you be in right now if you weren't here in this city?
Ooh, that's a heavy question. I think we would have been in... maybe Buffalo, New York.
Oh, that's not far from Toronto.
Cleveland, Ohio. I was on tour with Hamilton.
Hamilton, the musical.
The musical. Before everything went into this new chapter of life that we're living in now. But yeah, I was in Toronto doing Hamilton.
Yes.
The tour. And I think our itinerary would have had us in Buffalo or Cleveland, I think, right about now. But if I wasn't in the show, I'd probably be in New York or maybe over in Europe. I don't know. I kind of just flip a coin and go wherever I want to go whenever I don't have anything happening.
But here you are in Toronto, which is sort of a surprise. It's almost like your tour, it stopped. So I know a little bit about this story, which is that you were on tour with Hamilton and you were in Toronto, and you actually... The Toronto tour was just beginning, right? It was midway? Like your Toronto
section? 5 weeks in. I think we had a 13 or 14 week stay here in Toronto, and it was the Canadian premiere of the show, so everybody was very, very excited. I went to McGill for my master's in opera, so it was almost like a homecoming for me because a lot of my musician friends live in Toronto now, so I've been able to rekindle my friendships with them, especially during the lockdown too. A lot of social distant hangs in the park or going over to the island.
Yes.
I love Toronto so much. But anyway, we were a few weeks in, and I actually had a leave of absence for 3 weeks to go do a show at New York City Center,
Amazing.
Encores, where you
Amazing.
saw, that's probably where you saw Company, actually. I think that was at City Center.
It's possible. We were talking about how I saw a company in New York and met Jordan Roth, who was the producer, by accident in the line of the
Yeah.
washroom, and shot my mouth off about how one of the performers didn't live up to my
No,
expectations.
no.
But anyway,
We love
Uh,
honesty. But yeah, so I was doing a show there with some of my Broadway idols. Victoria Clark was the director.
Yes.
It's an old musical called Love Life by Kurt Weill and Alan J. Lerner,
yes.
who wrote My Fair Lady with Frederick Lowe. And
Was
Brian
that
Stokes
a low
Mitchell.
point in his career?
It was, maybe. I don't know.
That was
No,
just
no,
a
no,
pun
it's-
based on his last name.
Yeah.
Frederick Lowe. Okay.
Like Löwe as in lion. That's what his name is, actually. But anywho.
Stop correcting
yeah,
me. Brian Stokes Mitchell. So he was in the show with you?
Yeah.
Oh, I had such a crush on him when I was younger.
He is my absolute idol.
Ugh.
And when he walked into the room, I just kept my composure. When I auditioned for Vicky Clark, I was just like, because she's, Tony Award winning actress, complete superstar, an incredible director. I was just so lucky to Kate Baldwin as well. She was the lead female, the lead woman in the show. They're all incredible performers. So I had 3 weeks of working with them at New York City Center, and Rob Berman is the music director whom I've worked with for many years as well. And a week and a half in, it was our last day of rehearsal before we were going to go into the theater. And Vicky Clark comes in and says, I know you guys, this is March 12th, Thursday, March 12th. She says, you guys, I know everybody's really worried about this coronavirus thing. But I woke up this morning and I just said, of all the places in the world where I could be, I would rather be here with you all just working until we can't. So let's just tell this story until things happen. And we finished staging the piece that morning. We went up to our lunch break. When we came back, the whole creative team was there. And I looked at one of the stage managers and he just went,
ooh.
So the producer came up and said, unfortunately, New York just had this ordinance of no less than 500 people in one space.
No
and
more
then
than 500.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then all of Broadway actually ended up going into lockdown as well.
Yeah. And that
Everything
was
shut down.
that was like within a couple of hours, or like the announcement. Wow.
Yeah. And so my brother, actually, who was also an actor, Nicholas Christopher, he was going to be in the LA company of Hamilton as Aaron Burr, and they were getting ready for their first preview performance that Thursday night.
Wow.
So they didn't even get to perform for an audience.
Now, did you get to perform for an audience, or were you canceled? You were
Not with
canceled
Love
before
Life.
as well.
No.
So neither of you.
Yeah. No. So Love Life was, we did the show for each other,
Yes.
and then we all went out and had a grand old time. The next day, I was in bed just deciding whether or not to stay in New York for the week and a half and finish off my leave of absence then, or if I come back up to Canada. And it turns out Hamilton was still running here that Thursday night and then that Friday night as well. So I called my stage manager and said, can I come back? And they said, yeah, you took the leave of absence. You can come back whenever you want.
Oh, amazing.
So I called WestJet. They said, honey, get yourself over to the airport right now because they may shut the border. I booked an Airbnb in the taxi on my way to the airport, got my stuff there. I was able to get back into Canada. And then the next morning, Hamilton called us and said, everything's going under lockdown until April. It was like for a few weeks.
Yeah.
So we thought. So that's why a lot of people stayed. Some people did go home. They had the decision to before the border shut down.
Yeah.
And I just said, I'm just going to wait it out because I'm originally from Bermuda. I grew up in Boston. I went to school in Michigan, Montreal. I've traveled all over the world, worked in so many places. And I love...
Sung duets with Celine Dion as well.
Who?
You sung duets with Celine Dion,
Who?
You know what? Celine Dion.
She's the reason why I went to McGill, because I wanted to be in Montreal for 2 years in the hopes that she may just somehow be around.
Yeah. Did that happen for you? Was she around? No,
she was in Vegas. She had her twins. I was at McGill 10 years ago. But but I ended up meeting her in 2016. In 2016, she was singing on the Today Show, and I was in New York for a month visiting my family before I had this gig abroad,
Uh-huh.
and she was doing a free concert at the Today Show. And I went with my friend, and I said to him, I'm going to sing with her today, and I'm going to sing Beauty and the Beast with her today. And he's like, yeah, okay. And then I saw some sort of stagehand up on stage, or he was like an intern for the Today Show.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden he was walking by me. So I struck a conversation with him, told him that I love Celine. I'm a singer myself. And the reason why I'm a singer is partially because of her. And he's like, okay. And then I'm from Bermuda. 15 minutes later, I hear somebody go, hey, Bermuda. And I said, excuse me, yes. He says, Celine needs a couple of audience members. We're doing this game show segment. Do you want to do it? And I went, yeah, cool. Yeah, I can do that.
Oh,
I'm
my
freaking
God.
out inside. So
Of
then I
course.
met him at 9 o'clock. We went upstairs. It was like she would sing one line of a song, and then you'd have to buzz in and finish the phrase.
Oh, my stars.
And if you watch that footage, I buzz first every single time, but there were some overzealous people, of course, because you want to sing with Celine. So people would start singing before I did, but I kind of kept my cool because I knew that she was going to sing Beauty and the Beast. I just had it in my body.
Yes.
And so then she goes, tale as old as time, true as it can be. So I buzz, barely even friends, there's so many bands unexpectedly. And I just kept singing, just a little change, small to say the least, both a little scared. And she just goes, and walks up to me. We had these inflatable microphones. And she just walks up to me, and then we got to harmonize for 5 seconds. But I just stared her down because I was like, girl, this is our moment.
This is it. After this, it's all downhill. I'll be in a condo in Toronto waiting out a pandemic. So give me something to hold on to.
Literally.
So
No.
Okay, well that's pretty amazing. I do have to say though, it sounds like it was destined for you. You manifested that exact moment exactly to come out that way. So, I'm sort of not surprised. Sounds like, have you manifested other things like that? I'm just curious. Can you manifest on behalf of others as well?
I'll try to. It really is just like when you channel something that
so hard.
So in a way, but it wasn't hard because it wasn't in earnest. Whereas a lot of my hopes and dreams are in earnest or almost out of fear. Like I want things to happen in my life. Mm-hmm. But then once they do, it's like, okay, well, I did ask for it. I have to work hard to maintain it, or it didn't actually happen the way that I had imagined it, but I still have to appreciate it.
Or maybe not in the timeline that I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But then when I think about it, I'm actually like, wait a minute. I did get exactly what I asked for.
Okay.
Exactly what I asked for.
Well, you sound like the type of person who is made for uncertainty and change, like quick pivot, quick ball change, kickball change. But at the same time, here you are, like in Canada, you've been here since March, right? And there must have been moments when you wanted to go back to the US. Of course, the border closed, so you could technically go there, right? You just could not return.
Exactly. I can go back. My hope, at least for the first couple of months, was that things would open up again. We'd be back performing. We still had a few months left in Toronto, and then they reorganized our schedule a bit to see if we could stay in Toronto longer. And then we were going to go to Ottawa. And so I just said, let me just wait out spring here. I don't have a place of my own anywhere. I carry my stuff, and then I have a lot of things in storage in Boston and at my mom's apartment in Boston. And she splits her time between Boston and Bermuda. My brother's in LA. My sister is north of Boston.
So you're all you all come home for Christmas though.
Yeah, we usually go to Bermuda for Christmas, or we'll all go up to Boston for Christmas. It depends on our work schedules as well.
Wow.
Because I was in Indianapolis this past Christmas. We had Christmas Day off, or we had Christmas Eve off. We had one of those days off. So I flew to New Jersey and saw my sister and her in-laws there. But regardless, I'm always just, any place I hang my hat is home.
Right.
Is a song.
Yeah, I think that's a song.
True for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm actually singing it. I'm doing this live stream concert for for anybody, I guess, that wants to watch it. I'll send you the link and the
Yeah.
information for it.
Yeah.
But
And that's coming up in
I,
December, right? In mid-December,
December 11th
11th
through
to 13th.
13th, it'll be available on demand.
And is it, oh, so is it, it's like going to be a recording and you can watch it at any time situation?
Yeah, so we're going to do the live
Oh.
recording at the end of this month at it's called Small World Space. It's an artscape
Yeah.
space over on Shaw, close to Trinity Bellwoods, and it's a performing venue, but now they're offering live stream recording, high quality, and all of that. So I'm going to do this. I have a couple of sponsors that are helping me out.
Excellent.
And I have a band, and we're going to sing some great songs, including Any Place I Hang My Hat Is Home. But I fell in love with Toronto when I arrived here. We arrived here in February, actually, before I left for my couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And I just love the big city feel, but I also appreciate the vastness of
It's very big.
it. And there are parks
Everywhere.
everywhere. I'm currently downtown right now. I mean, you can see this crane right here and that big skyscraper. There are a lot more skyscrapers that way. But the fact that I'm on the 9th floor and I have this spectacular view and I don't have to be on the 50,000th floor in order to see the city.
yeah, to
This
fight for
faces
some sky.
north, and I see a couple of parks already, and I just feel like I can breathe here.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
if I was back in New York, which I love, and I know that New York is the hub for the entertainment industry, especially singing and theater. I would probably have to be with 3 or 4 roommates,
Right.
and kind of just be in each other's space.
And you have your own apartment, right? You can actually, and for the viewers at home, you're a big person. You're like 6'3", 6 foot,
6'4",
6'4",
and a half.
and a half.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So that means like your arms are about, the size of a 1 or 2 football fields. So having your own space to stretch out matters. And I hear what you're saying too about having a break maybe from the hustle and bustle. I mean, it must be a blessing in disguise to be able to sort of have a home, like one place with your hat for a little while, as opposed to like getting off that tour bus. But at the same time, there's been some crazy stuff happening in the States, and certainly like in terms of how the coronavirus has been held, or how we've been dealing with it in Canada has certainly felt different than what I see on the news. But you have people that live there, family you love, and has it been difficult to be watching them from here, from your kind of safe park haven?
Well, it seemed safe. Now, cases are on the rise.
That's true.
And
That's
we're breaking
true.
records here as well. Thankfully, not as much, but kind of per capita, it is kind of getting up there, unfortunately.
That's true. Yeah.
But again, I've always been away from home.
Right.
So I feel as though it's through technology and through texting, the group texts that my
Right.
siblings have, we're in constant connection now, even more so than almost ever. And I do appreciate that. And they've all, opened their homes to me as well if ever I want to go back. But I just feel with Toronto, I just feel like I could set down roots here. And even with that said, this is my 8th apartment that I've lived in this year.
In Toronto.
Just between sublets and all of that. I'm hoping this one is a longer stay. But I do worry about my family, and to make sure that they are keeping safe and being diligent. My mom is one of 7. She has 4 sisters. They are all like pretty
Fun.
obsessive when it comes to keeping clean anyway. So like
okay.
they're good, but they're getting older, and I don't want anything to happen to them. And my father's in Bermuda by himself working, and he was working at a soup kitchen for a while for all of those because Bermuda went under full lockdown. Everything was shut down. You could only go to the grocery store on a certain day of the week, depending on where your last name falls in the alphabet.
Oh, wow.
And you could only stay within a half-mile radius of your house. And if you were outside of that radius and you passed a police checkpoint, they could fine you thousands of dollars.
Wow.
And they did that strictly for, I believe, 2 months. The airport was shut down. They were allowing some chartered flights to come in for Bermudians and Bermudians only. And they were able to control the virus really, really quickly. But it's a
Yeah.
small island, and they were able to do that.
Yes.
But then between that and then, when George Floyd was murdered at the end of May, and all of the protests and Black Lives Matter movement really started to grow exponentially.
Yes.
It's funny because you don't really see many a coronavirus outbreak happening, or you didn't, from those gatherings.
Nope.
Like the Black Trans Lives Matter rally in Brooklyn. Tens of thousands of people were there. Was that in the middle of June?
Yes.
I have friends that were there. Everybody was wearing masks.
Yeah.
Everybody kept their distance from each other, but it was huge. And there was no super spreader event.
No, not like a Trump rally. Like those were super spreader events. Sorry to say his name. Sorry. Blah. But
I was wondering, honestly. But it's true. But then it did worry me, and I was nervous because I didn't know if I wanted to go back to the States, and I didn't. Obviously, there were a couple of protests here and a couple of marches, and I attended two of them. One kind of accidentally. I was walking to my friend's house, and I just saw, and they were so socially distant here.
Yeah.
It was like there were two people here, 25 yards down the street, with another group of people. And so I said, I'll walk. And I was so glad that I had that opportunity. And then there was another one in, I think it was in September, that I got to go to as well, up at Christie Pitts Park.
Yeah, Christie Pitts, yep.
And it was so great. And to see people come together in that way, and that's kind of what the blessing has been out of 2020, is the fact that we've all had time to reflect, take a look at ourselves, take a look at our country, or take a look at our people and see what is happening.
Right.
What are people getting away with when we are too busy, rehearsing on stage or going and doing a show at night, And so there's a lot of activism that we've been able to do online and offline. And that's because we've had this time.
Yes.
What's unfortunate now is that this time just keeps on being dragged out because the people up top are not doing anything to really control it. And then for those of us who are unemployed, I don't know when I'm going back to work.
Right.
The earliest projection is June, but I received an email recently too that said it might not be as early as September of next year. And our unemployment runs out, I think maybe in January or February, even if not before. In the US, you get 39 weeks of unemployment, and we only got one
stimulus
severance package from the federal government, and that
it's not
went
enough
as soon as it arrived. Of
course. Yeah.
So
how are you making ends meet? I mean, you're doing recording stuff.
You see, that's my crane that I rent. It's just parked. I couldn't find a parking space closer to the apartment. But usually I just there's a little elevator in there, and I can just come over.
If you crane your neck, you can almost see it.
Yeah, exactly.
But really,
no, I do recordings. So that I bought this system. It's just like a little mini recording studio. So I record demos for a lot of composer friends of mine who are writing new musicals or are doing various projects. I've done some talks at universities, some Q&As. I mean, this very high-paying podcast as well. Very high-paying. Huge money there. Good. I actually did, when I was living closer to Trinity Bellwoods, I was doing a recording in my apartment in this townhouse, and I saw my neighbor later that day. I said, "I'm sorry, I've been screaming all day." And she says, "Oh, no, you're rather good. You're quite good. Would you ever want to consider doing like a concert for the rest of the people in our block, what do you call that?
Neighborhood?
Like the neighborhood, yeah. And I said, sure. So then I got back. She had Post-it notes with all this information. Okay, I spoke to the head of the board, of the condo board. He's approved it, 7 p.m. Do you need anything? I said, well, I have a tiny little Bluetooth speaker. And she said, no, I'll figure it out. So then a friend of hers is actually a singer. She had a microphone and an amp that you could plug into your computer. So I got all my tracks and I did 3 concerts out on the patio, and people came, passers-by stopped and watched, and everybody was socially distant. The last time I did it was right before they said, no groups of 10 people or more. So I was able to get it in, and then they were so lovely. They gave me some tips, which I didn't ask for, and then I was able to connect and network with some people too who are involved with the events industry here, and with some in the music industry here. Because at the end of the day, my goal is to just kind of be an international singer, and I can really do the pop crossover, the classical crossover genre really, really well. And I would love to do that and to connect with people here in Toronto and figure out how I can make that happen here.
Well, on behalf of, the people of Toronto, your neighbors, but also, all of us who are trying to make things work differently, and in a more distant, but as you say, with technology, we have this opportunity to maybe connect more to people. Or, I'm finding, and this is one of the excitements about making this podcast, is that I'm finding that people who are really far away feel closer, but the people who feel closer in some cases are all seem at the same distance. Like everybody seems really far away, but made closer in an artificial way using technology. And so I'm kind of excited to have this opportunity to chat with people like you. And also just to, hear how people are surviving and thriving. It's amazing just to think that you have like a concert booked in December. And for those of us who are nervous about like Christmas feeling a bit different this year, for me, it's like a big, Thanksgiving is a big family holiday that was like essentially canceled. Right. I do live in Toronto full time, so for me, like this concept of home is very much about bringing people together and having these social gatherings. So I'm excited that you're doing that. You're going to be like helping to make those of us who are, going through our Christmas times or our holiday times feel closer with your music. It's all very exciting.
Oh, I hope so. Because I have spent many a Christmas on my own as well. Well, away from my family.
Right.
And you create your family wherever you are. I mean, I know you know that. You have quite a community of people here. And that's all we can do. But this year, it's going to be quite different. And as of the beginning of November, I didn't know how different it was going to be based on the US election as well. So,
right.
And we still kind of don't know because it's just absolutely bonkers.
It is bonkers town, yes.
But we have
faith.
Can't wait for that. And that glimmer of hope that we had, that video of Kamala going, we did it, Joe.
Yes.
You're going to be the next president of the United States. I love that. I love it. And that really did, there's still a lot of work that has to be done. But that glimmer of hope for that weekend, it really just changed a lot of people's thoughts. And
I think so too.
It just, I feel a sense of change coming on,
yes.
At least just within our spirits.
Yes.
I also took this mindful-based stress relief course. It's called MBSR through the Actors Fund in the US. The Actors Fund is incredible, and they've been helping people out throughout the whole crisis, this whole pandemic too. It was an 8-week course on figuring out how to manage your stress through mindfulness. And that really gave me a turnaround as well, because there was a point in September where things were staying the same, but there was a lot of change kind of happening within my periphery, like close to me.
Yes.
Like my friend that I was living with, he left to go back to the States, and other change was happening here too. So I was just kind of, oh my God, I can't. And then this course came along just right at the
perfect time. And you're like, oh, it's time for me
I
to
manifested that too. And
yeah.
I manifested that out of stress. Maybe I do have the power. I have the power.
I think you do. I think you do have the power. And then to like bring a Canadian song into it, "You're a Superstar," is maybe like what you're just channeling. You
yes.
just happen to be a superstar.
That is a very Canadian song.
It is.
Everybody was singing it on the Drag Race finale.
And you're like, what is this?
Like, what's this song?
What is this?
You don't know this song? I don't know this song.
It was I think it was the most popular Canadian song of that, like of the 90s. It was it was a big deal for us back then.
Yeah. I was in Bermuda in the 90s, so forgive.
You know what? I forgive you. I also, there's a lot of touchstones that I wouldn't know either. Although I recently did a little chair dance to the Folgers coffee jingle, which I think is like a shared value.
Yes, yes.
The
Right, because
aroma
you grew up
comes
with
through.
no TV, right? Did you grow up in those?
I grew
Or
up with no cable until I was like 10, which meant like I watched Gilligan's Island and stuff. I didn't really understand why they didn't just like when they saw a ship, why they didn't like swim out to it or why. Like I just didn't understand. It seemed like they really wanted to be stuck on that island, and they had like a little
what a
bit of
conceit for America right now.
yeah. It's also so real.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, I made up for lost time. Trust me, I spent a lot of time just eating chips and staring into the TV, sometimes on the phone, so that I could also have other friends watching the same show with me. Did you ever do that?
Yes, I've done that. Well, I've done that for, yeah, actually I did. And we would say 5, 4, 3, 2, play, go. Or 5, 3, 2, 1, play. And when I'd say, listen to the rhythm of the numbers. And you have to make sure you click. Because how responsive is your computer when you click? Like, because we want to make sure that we can respond at the right time of the various episodes.
These are the things that matter. But it does matter because I don't want to know your punchline before I'm ready. Like if I'm listening at the same time. So Jonathan, my second part of this podcast is going to be with another Jonathan who you don't know, but maybe you'll like learn about him from the interview. So I look forward to splicing you two together and seeing how two Jonathans from America who love musical theater made it through, are making it through. We're not out yet, are we? There's still more pandemic.
Child, winter hasn't even started.
Winter's on the wing, etc. Except that's more of a spring song, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Wait, were you Dickin?
No, but I did sing some for like audition pieces when I was in high school. Obviously.
Yeah. Yes. You have to.
Yeah, nothing like a ambiguously unmarried sort of Irish hand being like, "Oh, I just spent a lot of time in the garden by myself. Sometimes my friends come by, but the door's locked. It's a secret garden." So, those kinds of things. I think when you're younger and you're looking for representation, you sort of align with the ones that don't definitely pursue a lady. You're just like, well, he has other interests. He could, who knows? I have lots of interests. He has lots of interests.
Yes.
Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. And
my pleasure. Thank you for asking me.
Well, I wanted to get you on my Instagram show, but you were always very busy. So, and you are now as well. I just worked around your schedule. So that's look at you. You're busy in a pandemic in a city that isn't even your home, although it is more your home now than it's ever been.
It is. I love it here.
Maybe
I'm working on an audition for my first film, my first ever movie audition.
Yes.
So I have to work on that when I hang up with you. I have to film a couple of videos for some end of year galas that I've been asked to sing in. And what else am I working? And then my own concert. I'm trying to learn that music too. And then I also just made it to the semifinals of this competition, which I can't talk about just yet.
Oh, okay.
But
well, that's great.
By this point in time, it will probably be announced. But anyway, I'm in the semifinals of a competition, of a vocal competition. So
okay. Yay! Okay. Well, more on that later. We'll have to check in when you're broadcasting live from your solid gold palace, and I'll be like, "Remember that time you were on my podcast?" And you'll be like, "I'm sorry, who is this?"
Right.
It's me.
No.
Thank you.
Mwah. Thank you. Good to see you. Take care. My concert December 11th through 13th.
Okay. We'll be there or square.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, hi, Jonathan. Jonathan
How
Savage.
Are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm just chilling,
chilling like a villain. You and your hats.
And my hats. I literally just made this today. I felt really cool about it.
So when you say made it, you mean like I just put hats on my wall today? Is that what you mean by I made it?
Well, I mean, I took the push pins and I like designed it by saying a grid would be like a really cool revolutionary thing to do. And there's this like octagonal mirror piece
Huh.
that I
Which I can't, it's out of frame. I don't know if it's there or not. It doesn't matter. Maybe it's not there. Maybe you're lying. It's fine.
You'll just have to trust me.
So we've never met before.
We've not.
I like basically just stalked you on Instagram and then berated you, and then eventually you agreed to be on my podcast. So that's nice. That's a success story.
Eventually, but you asked me and I immediately said yes. So
It's true. I didn't have to like poison you or anything. It's true. It was like a low effort sort of ask. It was very nice, actually.
you send me very great content, so I know you're a person.
So you're actually part 2 of the Jonathan podcast, because the Jonathan episode, because I already interviewed another Jonathan who is a music theater man who was on tour with Hamilton when COVID hit. And now he's from Bermuda originally, but he was living in New York or whatever. And so then now he lives in Toronto because that's where he was when the COVID shutdown happened. And so when I mean, obviously, like, I stalked you because you have a very sexy Instagram page, which is fine. And you have very long limbs. There's a lot going for you. But also, you now live in Wyoming?
Yes, I live in Wyoming right now.
But I feel like that's not where you were before. And I feel like you're doing something different now than you were before, because right now you're working at a daycare center in Yellowstone National Park.
Yes.
So how is that different from what you were doing before?
You know, honestly, I was about to speak. It's not that much different, but it's actually very different.
Yeah.
Really what I was doing before was I was and still am a professional actor, and I had a contract lined up I was super excited about that ended up getting canceled, and a trip to Europe I had planned.
Oh.
But those were canceled, and then I quarantined for like 3 months, and then I was like, okay, I'm over this. And my lease was coming up, and I was like, theater's not coming back for a while. Like, I just want to go work in a national park. And I like started looking, and it was way past hiring season, and so there were no jobs available. And I talked to a lot of people. I just reached out on Facebook, and like those people connected me with other people, and the other people, and I just looked, applied for so many things. And then eventually my friend was like, oh, my friend lives in Moab in a van in Utah, in Moab, and you should just call her and see what she says. She's a river raft guide. And I was like, oh, I never thought about like recreational outdoors. Like, that's super cool. So I called her, and she was like, yeah, Moab is like one of the rock climbing epicenters of the world, and I've always wanted to rock climb. And like,
Have
people
you done
just
it
come
before?
out here and they figure it out. Say what?
Had you rock climbed before?
I mean, like, you know what, Lifetime Fitness, you know.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you can tell, but I am not a Lifetime Fitness person. In fact, I don't know if I've ever done fitness in my lifetime. Thank you. Heyo. Boop, boop, boop.
I do not, I have to clarify, I do not currently go to Lifetime Fitness. As an adult, I cannot afford that. But when my parents had memberships to Lifetime Fitness in Chicago, then that was when 6-year-old me climbed a little wall.
So is that where you're from, Chicago?
Well, okay, so I was born in Pittsburgh.
And
I lived there for 2 years, and then I moved to Chicago. I lived there for 6, and I moved to St. Louis. I lived there for 5, and then I moved to South Florida when I was like 13, where my family still lives.
Wow.
Well, my parents still live. My brother and sister actually ended up moving back to St. Louis. And then I went to school in Pennsylvania, and then I moved to New York, and now I live in Wyoming right now.
So what you're saying is you hate traveling?
I love traveling so much.
And you hate adventure, and like you definitely look before you leap. You sound like that type of person that's like you do a very thorough scan before you make any moves.
How did you just read me for Phil?
You know, it's interesting, and so you will see the other you'll see the other interview, as you know, when you see your video, because it's paired. But the other Jonathan is very similar. He's like Mr. Travel, because for me, so I have like a minor theater background in that I went to music theater high school, and I was like really considering going into theater. And then I had this, I was in a professional show. It was a real gig in Toronto, here in Toronto, Canada. and it was a great gig. And my favorite actors, like the stars of Midsummer Night's Dream, they're very well known here. And I was like, oh my God, wow, you're amazing. So what's your life like? Like I was kind of interviewing them. I was like, what do I have to look forward to? And they were like, well, if you really want to make it, you'll have no fixed address. You will have no, like, you won't be able to plant roots. You'll have no garden. And I was like, oh, that sounds kind of... And the most successful actor of that cast had a P.O. box, like a post office box, because he...
A P.O. box! It's my first ever!
Right? And so, but like, wherever he lived, he always had somebody check the mail for him, but he never lived near the mail. And I was like, ugh. Anyway, so you and the other Jonathan have very similar kind of like, boop, 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 boop. Like you're nomadic. You've got this great... Which in some ways means that you're so well suited for this incredible pivot that's happened with COVID.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Or...
No, I totally agree. I'm like, it's just kind of weird to think about, like, that I'm just doing this. And, like, it's so true that it's, like, this is the best time to do it. And, like... I don't know, like sometimes I stop and I think, I'm like, how the fuck did I get here? Because I came out west in June and I didn't move to Yellowstone until September.
Oh.
Or August. Yeah. So I came out west with like a group of friends. Actually, people like this gay couple that I had known for like 2 months, but like we hit it off. And then this girl I never met, and this one girl who I hope you know Stage Door Manor.
I went to Stage Door Manor.
Are you kidding me?
No, I did.
What session?
I know, but okay, it was a long time ago, and it was the third. It was a long time ago. It was like the third session, and it was in like I don't want to say, but it was like very close to the year 2000.
Did you like it? Did you love it?
I did. I'm still friends. So, okay, so you know how all of their... Did you go to Stage Door?
Yeah.
So you know how
that's how I know the fifth girl. Is we actually went to Stage Door a long time ago, but she was actually friends with one of the guys in the gay couple. So I just kept tagged along. It was all my idea that we should go west in the first place. But yeah, anyways.
So you know how all of the like counselors and stuff are from the UK or Australia?
All the who?
Like at Stage Door, all of the counselors?
Yes.
Yeah, so like I'm still in contact with all of my favorites. And I visited, no joke, I visited 2 of them this past Christmas, so last year, in Perth, Australia, which is like very far. And we had dinner together. And so it was like 15, oh my God, I was 17, so 17 plus... So 20 years ago. I hadn't seen them in 20 years. Yeah, it was crazy, right? And I still get a Christmas card from a couple. And anyway, yeah, I'm still in contact with them. Sometimes I get drunken phone calls from another a guy who was like was he my bunk mate? Like I think he was in my room. But anyway, we were very close. I still get very drunken phone calls from him. And I was the same year as Sebastian Stan. Oh, for God's sakes. Well, I didn't... Okay, so he was in Gilmore Girls, and then he was in the movie with the leg woman, ice skating. This is the sign for ice skating. What's her name? The Nancy Kerrigan, the movie with the... Tanya. He was the abusive boyfriend in I, Tanya. Anyways, a lot of Instagram followers.
Years.
Okay, but it took me like 15 minutes to explain who he was, so let's not get crazy. Okay. But, yeah... So you went to Stage Door too? That's crazy.
I did. I loved it so much, and I met this girl there. Like, I knew this girl before, and no, except Callaway, who's the girl I hadn't met, who lived in Moab. I knew this girl longer than everybody else, and we had had one conversation, and I had a very specific opinion of her, and then I met her again, and she was the coolest person I've ever met. Ended up living in her house for a month.
A very specific opinion. Let's not go into it in case she sees this podcast.
No, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. It's just, you have these, you have one interaction with the person.
Uh-huh.
And
things get real specific.
Yeah. And you follow them on Instagram 3 years later and you just see everything through that filter.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't bad at all. I'm just really stepping.
Let's just change the subject real quick. So So after deciding she was garbage, but then meeting her and being like, oh, she's so nice, You mooched off of her for a while, so that's called grifting. And then you went to the Moab, and now you're in Yellowstone, and you.
Kinda. So I went to Moab, and we met up with all these people, and then Mickey, the Stage Door Girl's parents, also had a house that was like an hour and a half away. Then we kind of had a home base up, but we went to Moab, and then we went on a 3-week road trip at the PNW. And so Callaway lives out of her van, and then Mickey has. Oh, I guess I shouldn't say the real name. I don't know.
Well, Mickey Mouse. You never know. Yeah.
Literally Mickey Mouse. Had a car. So the 5 of us drove through with a van and like an expedition.
Yes.
And we drove all the way out to the PNW, and we had like a 3-week road trip.
What's the PNW?
The Pacific Northwest.
Oh.
Yeah. And so like we lived out of the cars for like 3 weeks, and we also like lived out of like an RV back in Moab. And then halfway through I was like, okay, I want a van. I'm gonna buy a van, and I'm gonna live in a van, because when I came out here I bought a 1-way ticket. And so I was like, okay, that's gonna be my next step. I'm gonna buy a van when they go back to New York and like everybody else disperses, and I'm gonna live in a van. And so I bought my van like on the second to last day of the trip. I bought it, and it's the van I have now, and I love it so much.
And your van's name is Apollo.
It is Apollo.
Right.
It is. Research. And
I should be a stalker. Like really, I am so cut out for it. It's just so great.
For the government.
Yeah. So you bought Apollo, and then you lived by yourself in it?
I lived in Grand Junction, Colorado with Mickey's family for like 2 weeks to like get my van, or 2 or 3 weeks to get my van set up. And also because we had a gig teaching dance intensive. Very safe, very socially distant. There were no reported cases from after it. So it was in fact as safe as we said it was. So it was very safe. So the best way
to find out is until when it's done.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Turns out it was as safe as we thought.
Yay!
When
we took it was fine.
Yeah.
But it was great, and it was super awesome, and I did feel actually very safe and comfortable, and I take the virus very seriously. I've gotten tested so many times. And anyways, so then I got my van together, and then built the bed, and then at the time I was applying for other jobs, and I looked on this website called Coolworks, and I found this job called. Well, I shouldn't say the name of the school.
You found
in Yellowstone.
In Yellowstone National Park. So there are people that live in the park?
Yeah. So there's like a little. So I live in the northern part of Yellowstone, which is called Mammoth. So there's Upper Mammoth, which is where they have like the hot springs and like more of the touristy stuff, and then there's Lower Mammoth, which is the employee housing, and the school has a few houses in the. So I don't actually technically work for the park. I just live in the park and work at a school that is in the park. Huh. Which is an independent business.
Now, is this similar to like carnies? Like the people that work at the carnival have to have their own like school, and they're sort of like they're not part of civilization because they travel.
No. We have outside people who come.
Oh.
To our school, like because we're like 10 minutes from the entrance, from the north entrance, which is technically in Montana. So you drive 5 minutes and then you're in Montana. So a lot of times we just say we live in Montana because it kind of sounds a little cooler. And so there's people who like work at the supermarket who bring their kids in. Right now it's very limited capacity, especially for COVID. But but mostly families who work in the park, even if they live outside the park, come in and drop their kids off. And, yeah.
Okay, so you're having a great time, and you are planning to stay for like the next little while, but you probably have another adventure in sight.
Yes, I have some thoughts I'm thinking about.
Some thoughts you're thinking about. So you're not going to like be a child care worker forever?
I mean, I think I will forever be a teacher. That's for sure. While I'm teaching these kids, I'm also teaching up in Gardner. I teach an acting / dance class for some 10-year-olds, which has been super awesome. I teach privates. There's a woman here her husband is full-time, but she's seasonal. And a few years ago, she's written this one woman show about the lineage of the women in her life who were all like burlesque and vaudevillian dancers, and her rejecting and then embracing it. It's really cool. And so we started chatting. She's like, I would love to like work with you on it. So we're going to start working on that together. Actually tomorrow. Over Zoom. And so like I'm still getting to be super artistic and creative and like out here, which is awesome. But like teaching dance, I think is one of my will always be in New York. Like I just love to teach. So wherever I go, children will be in my life. But I don't think I'm going to be a daycare teacher for the rest of my life.
For the rest of your life. So I found you on Instagram through Kimmelman, who is from Toronto. So
he's from Toronto?
I mean, he was here for a huge chunk of time for quarantine. He's a Canadian man. And I mean, as far as I know, why else would you spend a huge chunk of quarantine in Toronto? So so he was like showing up in my Insta stories and stuff, and then there was all this naked photos of you like posing and stuff, and I was like, oh, who's that very long-limbed person? And so that's how the connection happened. But you know, so you're kind of like living out your traveling fantasy, but you spent 3 months in New York before you came here. So what was it like? Like, what was it like when the quarantine was starting, and like there are videos of you sort of like dancing and stuff in the streets, and there's nobody around. What did that feel like?
Crazy. It was so interesting because I remember I had a final callback the day before Broadway shut down for something, and like I was in the studio going through everything. I felt really, really good about it, and then we got the announcement that Broadway shut down, and I was like, okay. And so I went home, and then we were officially in a quarantine, and I was like, okay, I'll just go to sleep and wake up when I want, which I don't. I mean, I do. I sleep in whatever. I'm not good at relaxing and doing nothing, and so I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna play so many video games and just do whatever I want.
It's gonna be great.
It was great at first, and then it started, and I was like, all right, this is so crazy. Like, this is real. And I try to find the fun in every situation. So I thought it was really fun because I was like, this is crazy. Like, we're in what is called the greatest city in the world, which I agree is one of the greatest cities in the world. But I also love Toronto, and I want to talk about that because I've been there for like 6 hours, and it was great.
Oh, okay.
But
all
the
right.
greatest city in the world.
New York is a great city. I will not take it personally if you like New York more than Toronto. It is a very different, amazing, bustling, formerly bustling place, I guess.
Well, that's the thing, is like it just shut down, and we were like, what? And so I used to live up on 176 in Fort Wash, and I am so sad. I love that apartment so much. But everything shut down. I was like, okay, all right, I'm just gonna play video games and go on bike rides every day. So every day I just like rode my bike, and I learned the entire West Side bike path, and like there was no one out, no one.
Wow.
Except for like closer to the east side, there were some people out, but it was very barren, and it was very weird, and it was still kind of cold. So there weren't a lot of people outside because they didn't want to be. And I just like explored parts of the island I had never seen before, which was so cool. And then one day I went to the top of the island, which I wasn't far from, and I biked all the way down Broadway through Columbus Circle, which if you know it. Have you been to New York? I'm sure
I have, yeah.
Okay. So Columbus Circle, which is usually like a terrifying intersection sometimes, I was able to bike around and not fear for my life. Then I went down. I went through Times Square. I went through Bryant Park, all empty. I biked down Fifth Avenue with no cars.
Whoa.
It was crazy. And then I went all the way down. I kept going. Union Square, empty. And then across the Brooklyn Bridge, there were maybe 10 people on it.
Whoa.
And I got this really awesome picture of me with my bike and no one else on the bridge. It was crazy. It was super eerie, but it was also it was eerie. Like there was just this feeling of like, all right, well, New York is like a hot spot, and like this is happening, and like this virus is real, and we don't really know anything. And this is back when there were task force updates every day. And like it was weird. But then there was a point where I was like, okay, I don't know. Actually, it's right when it had started, I had this idea. I was going to do this thing called Corona Corner.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes I do random series on my Instagram. And last year during Christmas time, I did this thing called Booked and Blessed. And people had to say what they were booked and blessed about in like life. Because it was like, whatever. Anyways,
what do you mean, like
people
booked
videos,
as in like
blessed.
Yeah, but what were you like booked for gigs?
So that it was the play on that, but instead of like what did I book and I'm blessed to like book that job, it's like what am I grateful for in life? And it like took us through New Year's. It was dumb and it evolved, but it was fun.
I'm just not sure if I'm jiving with the pun, but otherwise it's great.
All right, okay, I get that. You know, it's not for everyone. I've done this thing. I used to have this series called, which I try to carry on, I forget about, is New friends in New York, hashtag NFINY. When I first moved to the city, I would take videos of like recording funny interactions I had had with people. And it was like, I made a new friend. And so sometimes there's a new friend in Montana. So keep your eyes peeled for hashtag NFI, whatever the last two. But
Okay.
anyways, I digress. My ADHD is really kicking in right now.
I'm like totally. I'm here for the ride. It's really fun.
I appreciate it.
It's really
I appreciate it. And it was called Corona Corner, and the idea was like, what are you gonna do during quarantine to like, what are you gonna use this time to do? Like, watch a movie, the movies you've always wanted, read the books you've always wanted to read, and like every day I had a book suggestion, a movie suggestion, a song suggestion, like an album, and like a musical suggestion.
Oh.
And then kind of doing like every day was like just one thing, and like it evolved. And then I had like Instagram live dance parties where I just danced in my room, and then like people would go live with me. I did
That's fun.
And so people could submit, and then I would post, and then I just like did all this stuff, and it just helped me stay really active and like enjoy it. And then there was a point where I was like, okay, I'm kind of exhausted, and like this is a lot.
Yeah.
And like, great, I'm just spending a lot of time on social media, and all I do is sit in my house and then bike outside. And like, so I like completely deleted Instagram, and then I like went completely off the face of the earth without saying anything. But then like, that was a totally different experience, because it was just like sitting with yourself and like actually having the time, because I deleted the social media, had the time to do the things I actually wanted to do.
Yes.
And so one of my goals,
and also to like hear the thoughts that you maybe never wanted to hear.
Yep, I got real big into journaling right before that. So I journaled a lot. Did I journal a lot through quarantine, or was I bad? I was probably kind of bad about it. Let's get real.
I think like so I did 100 shows, 100 Instagram live shows in a row.
Holy moly.
Yeah. So I had, I just went on live one night, and I was like, and that's how this sort of podcast thing that we're doing now came to be, because I did these 100 shows, and then people were like, cool. So like, are you going to keep going forever? And I was like, 100 shows is a lot. So maybe in a row. So for 100 days, I was like on live for at least an hour, sometimes 2. And sometimes I programmed them, so I'd have like special guest interviews and stuff. And sometimes I would just have friends pop in and do like a check-in. And it would like, sometimes we had people from Morocco and the UK and the US and all across Canada. It was in all different time zones. It was really cool. But there is something exhausting about, like, as much as social media seems to give in the moment, it really takes afterwards, you know? And so there was a total exhaustion from that. But I also think, like, you know, I'm not sure if I'm hearing what you're saying is similar or not, but the idea that when you leave the house, it's like you're leaving to leave, but you're not really allowed to be anywhere when you're out. So it's like you're in this strange thing, like going for a bike ride is a great example, because you're not going anywhere. You're just leaving, and then you have to come back eventually, and you're like, okay, I'm here. What am I supposed to do now?
Yeah. And there's just those moments you gotta get outside. And honestly, I said, thank God quarantine happened during the summer, because if this happened in winter, God. And so there were so many spots in the city, well, specifically up near Washington Heights, but in the city, a little further down too, like that they were my spots, and I would like go here, and like, how far did I want to go today? Do I just want to go a short little bike ride? I would go to this spot. Like, I want to do the full hike and go to like this little beach. Yeah, okay, I'll go there, and then I'll journal, listen to music, smoke weed, and like whatever.
It's legal here, don't you worry.
I know, because that's part of my Toronto story.
Yep, all in Canada. It's been over a year. It's been legal. I just checked my watch, but yes, it's over a year. October 17th. Last year it was legal.
It just got legal in Montana, but it's going to take a while till it actually works.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. But yeah, you come back, and then you're like, and I had a roommate, he was my best friend from home. And so it's like, sometimes I was just like, nothing to do with him, but like, you just come home and it's like the same thing. It's like, all right, what are we going to do today? Play Assassin's Creed. I'm going to go on a bike ride and I got really into making carrot and banana bread and zucchini bread and all that stuff.
Did you do sourdough?
I never got into that, but my current roommate, she is a sourdough queen, and I reap the benefits.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like, if there's one per household, it's okay, but 2 per household's a lot. It's a lot of
she named hers Dolly because of the sheep Dolly, because you like clone them.
Yes.
And because she loves Dolly Parton, and I love Dolly Parton.
Wow,
She's
Dolly's doing some great things for the world. She's definitely putting more into it than she's taken out this time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're wrapping up in the time department, even though it hasn't felt like any amount of time. We've already been talking for 25 minutes. Isn't that amazing?
I love talking to you. You're so fun.
Well, I mean, we can talk again. That's for sure.
That'd be great.
But I guess I've just, the whole point of this podcast, or the idea behind it, is to sort of get a sense of how everybody around the world is being impacted by COVID, but also, what, some of the pivots and some of the goods and the bads. And, I think that as like a sparky music theater child, you are excited by the challenge of it. And it sounds like you're like absolutely making the best of the situation and using it for this huge adventure and all of this stuff. But I guess I'm just wondering, like, what have there been moments when you've been like, what if live theater is not a thing anymore? Like, what will I do? Have you thought about, like, just to like stab you in the heart with an ice pick right now?
That's hilarious because you use ice picks to ice climb, and that's something I've done since being out here.
Oh my God.
That's really interesting you say that, because thinking about it, I've never thought about a future where live theater doesn't exist.
Okay.
And to me, it was like, it's gonna come back. It's going to somehow, somewhere, in some way.
Isn't that a song lyric?
Yeah. And that's so interesting you asked that, because the idea that it might not come back, or like, what if it never did, has never crossed my mind, because I've always known that, like, I'm out here, but there is an end date, and me going back to New York to go finish what I started.
Right.
That's incredibly important to me.
So you feel like you're on a hiatus right now, like you're having your fun wild adventure, and then you're going to get serious and you're going to marry New York City and settle down and have theater children.
I
just watched an episode of The Crown, so I'm really thinking that way.
See how my career progresses and see what grows from that, because I love theater, but I love performing, and I love performing. It's very important to me, and I love being in that world. And like, it's interesting, like, I love being out here too. Like, there are two very specific parts of my soul that I feel like are always at battle. So right now I'm really just trying to enjoy the fact that I get to be out here, and then I fear, sometimes I do get scared that if I go back, I'll miss out here too much, but I think that's going to happen. But, you see all these things about, like, you're in theater. Actually, no, very specific example. Someone I know who went to my school, who's currently, I think, a junior, wrote this status and asked what people who had graduated, like, what they would give advice to, like, him in his position. And so many people were like, have a different passion, have something else that you love, that you can escape from theater, because it feeds it. And so for me, like you can absolutely bet that 2 hours ago, there's like this little spot within the park that I like park my van and like go and read my book. And that's like one of my spots here, like I find spots wherever I go, and that's one of my spots. And I go, and you can bet your ass that I like belted Ladies Who Lunch into the river in one of the best performances of it I've ever given. Like, it's like, I can be out here, but the actor in me and the musical lover and the musical kid and the theater kid in me is still very real. And that is so important to me, which is why I gravitate towards teaching it and like finding other ways that I can still be cultivating out here, like taking class on it, like singing all the time, whatever, putting in TikTok, I don't know. And then when I'm in New York, I also miss being able to travel. And so you balance it, and you have to find the balance. But New York is where I'm coming back to. I don't know. I would love to have a home there, but I also love to travel. So I will be open to anything.
Well, I mean, that's an amazing answer. And I'm not trying to plant seeds of doubt in you. I just think like everyone's journey has been so different. And I think it's amazing. It sounds like your journey has been like affirming, that you're doing amazing things, and they all they're still leading towards the similar or same focus that you had a few months ago. And so I wish you all the damn best, because I mean, you'll be the first guy like in Spider-Man the musical who doesn't have a stunt double, because you'll be like climbing The
I hope so.
if it's still running, or like it'll be called like Ice Climb the musical, and you'll be up there, and you'll be a moose. Like we could, there's lots
I'll be a moose, ice climbing.
yeah, like that's not something I've ever seen before. So maybe you could be like an ice climbing moose, and you'll have like, and then every once in a while you'll like spew sort of like a hot, foamy, isn't it like a sulfuric liquid? Is that Old Faithful?
With a hot spring?
Yeah. You can just like, I'm just saying you can use the experience of your Yellowstone on the stage.
You're writing my one-man show.
I am, and I'm not even charging a dime, which is so different.
We'll be in the playbill, I promise.
Thank you so much. So do you have any like shows or anything that you're doing, or like are you doing any like performing online or anything right now, or are you just kind of like in your developmentally working on being in the moment phase?
So, a little bit of both, actually. The show I was supposed to do this summer, I was supposed to do Super You off Broadway at the Dale Roth. And I was going to swing it, and I was super, super excited.
Swinging is when you're like a alternate, like a understudy situation. Yeah.
Yeah. So I covered
for those who aren't like in love with music theater, if there are any people who listen who are not in love with music theater. But anyway, yes, carry on.
But yeah, and they have been done such a great job of keeping themselves on the map, like putting out content. The soundtrack is just phenomenal. The concept album is so good. If you love high belting, there are 6 fierce females. Well, that's like 6 too, but it's it melts your face. It's so good. It's so it's wonderful, and you should absolutely look it up. Super You the musical.
Super You the musical. Okay.
I came out here and I was like, I had resisted TikTok for so long. And I mean, you know what? I'm getting a TikTok. So I downloaded TikTok and I started playing around with it. And I did this video called, it was like, when your only performance opportunity is circle time, you take it very seriously.
Yes.
And I did Twinkle Twinkle Little Star in like the most obnoxious way possible. And the writer of Super You, Lords Lane, she reached out to me and she's like, this is so funny. We would love if you guys would make some TikToks for the Instagram. So I made like 8 TikToks for Super You using some of the music that I think were fucking hilarious. And yeah, they've been posting them intermittently. So it's nice to remember that, like, okay, I'm still a part of something, because they were they emailed us. They're like, as of now, like, we are postponing. Yes. It is not a matter of if, a matter of when. This show is happening. We are going to do it. It's just a matter of when. And they have done nothing but prove that since. Like, they're just doing such a great job of keeping themselves on the map. And so it's been really great to like be like socially like associated with them. And so like, yes, I'm up for the show. Yes. And it feels good. And whenever I'm like a little stressed, I'm like, oh, like, I don't know. It's like, oh, Super You is like real, and that is still gonna happen.
Yeah, you have something
like
like
those people and
right away to move into.
Yeah, so hopefully it comes back with everything, and if not, it'll just be a matter of time, because it's really such a great piece and it's so cool. So we'll see what happens.
Well, it has been a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you for taking 7 p.m. Mountain Time. 7 to 7:30 to chat with me. I really appreciate it, and I'll let you know when the episode is ready, and hopefully maybe you can do a life update later on. You can like from a new bedroom which has more hats, fewer hats, different shaped hats.
The worst thing I hate about this bedroom is that not only the wall, but the carpet is beige, so I am in a beige wonderland, and sometimes I want to die.
Wow. Well, I mean, you're pretty sparkly. I would say like you're probably like you really rainbow it up. If you know what I mean. Thank you so much, Jonathan. And if you and be careful out there. There's deer and moose in your land. And elk.
There's worse than deer, but moose is pretty bad.
What's the worst?
Yeah, elk and bears and moose and.
Oh my. Yeah.
Oh my.
Thank you so much. We're going to end here, and I will hopefully check in with you soon.
All right.
Okay, bye.